For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Thabi Madiba, researcher and analyst. Professor Raymond Suttner joins me for Suttner's View, a weekly commentary on South Africa's political scene. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
A range of people are now emerging with claims that they had been raped, often over 20 years ago in the case of Jennifer Ferguson and the complainants in other cases. What do you make of this?
I think it's part of a situation where a climate has been created where people who may not have revealed that they were raped have felt more comfortable. The atmosphere is still hostile towards people who make claims of rape for reasons I'll discuss. But the climate has become better where a lot of people have come out and said, me too, I was also raped. And the claims relate not only in Jennifer Ferguson's case, but in the case of Bill Cosby, in the case of this Harvey Weinstein in America, in the case of the late Sidney Frankel in South Africa, in the case of Bob Hewitt. They relate to 20-something years ago. And what the Sidney Frankel case decided, if I remember correctly, is that the crime of rape does not prescribe in 20 years. Now, normally there's a certain amount of time, I think it's 20 years, and you can't bring a complaint after that period. They said, the court decided that it didn't prescribe. And I think it's very important because sometimes a child is raped and they don't actually understand that they have been raped. And it's sometimes through therapy and a number of things that you put the pieces together. And in many cases, the person who is raped is a member of the family. And the family have told the child, make as if it never happened. And they bury it. They say, this is a family matter, let's not go to the police. The child wouldn't probably have thought of the police. But a lot of these cases are not rape of adults. Or the atmosphere is one whereby everyone has felt for a long time, who's been raped, that the atmosphere surrounding reporting a rape experience is unwelcome for the rape complainant. They go to a police station where they may not be interviewed in private. Statements are not taken properly. Often material is lost. The Medical Research Council did a survey which is reported in the Times on Monday and shows that a lot of vital equipment and material needed for dealing with rape cases have been lost, and there's a very low conviction rate. They say the heading of the Times report is you've got a much better chance of being convicted of copper theft than of rape. In fact, much better chance of most things. I think we need to perhaps repeat that rape is a sexual offense, but it's not sexual in the conventional meaning of the word, whereby pleasure is derived, whereby someone takes the body of a human being against their will and imposes himself on that other person. It's actually an act of violence. Rape is a violent crime. We need to understand this and recognize it, and that's why a lot of people link it with misogyny, which is hatred of women or diminishing of women in a number of different ways. Myself, I would relate it in the first place to patriarchy, and patriarchy views men as having the right to access women, whatever woman he wants, for his own needs. It relates not only sometimes, the silences relate not only to the fact that a family might try to hush up the matter, but it also relates to unequal power. What people are saying in this case of Danny Jordan and Jennifer Ferguson, that Danny Jordan is a powerful human being, and he's not even bothered to respond to the allegation until yesterday, and he's not done it directly. And what Rebecca Davis does in the Daily Maverick today, she says it's like the scandal surrounding him in regard to the World Cup. He didn't even bother to respond to them for a time, and he suggests that the reason why he hasn't responded because of his sensitivity to victims of gender-based violence. And you should look at this article. She really dissects the language. So what I think has happened now is that there's a wellspring of public support for rape survivors, and people say, I believe you, Jennifer. And others say, what's happened to innocent until proved guilty? And what I think we're dealing with here, this is something I get from my wife, Nomboniso Gasa. She was saying on Twitter that we must understand that we are dealing with more than one conception of truth. The public may believe something is true, and the courts may require other processes to establish whether or not they are true. And we are entitled, as the public, to affirm the rape complainant, rape survivor, or rape victim, whatever she wants to call herself. And that is not to say that there can't be court processes. So I think what we're seeing, hopefully, is a less sympathetic environment for rapists, because rapists were able to get away with rape and complainants were not able to have their complaint adequately addressed because the environment was unfriendly. When people say, me too, I also was raped, or I believe you, those things are part of an environment that makes it more conducive. The other things that happen, for example, there is, in the eyes of courts and the media, a way in which they expect a rape complainant to behave. You saw this in the Zuma rape case, seen it in other cases, where if you are calm and collected or something like that, you couldn't have been raped. So that they penalize a woman for that, but also, unlike other violent crimes, you often can go into the sexual history of the complainant to suggest that she was a slut or that she asked for it or things like that. So there's a lot of these things in the criminal justice system that need to be addressed.
What can be done to lower the tolerance for rape and act against it?
Well, you see, there's the cultural aspect of our society and there's the criminal justice system. At a cultural level, we're really dealing with violent masculinities, even if men are raped, because there are men who are raped, and most of them are too ashamed to admit that they find it so shameful. But rape is part of a violent notion of what it means to be a man, rough, tough. And we need to find ways of affirming people who are gentle, affirming people who show their toughness or their bravery in a range of ways that are not necessarily aggressive towards other people, and definitely not violent, and definitely not violent towards women, as in rape. And that is a big problem in this society, that we prize rough, tough men. But the legal system itself, from the police to the courts, are problematic. I've mentioned that the police often lose dockets. They don't actually interview people sympathetically, sensitively. People don't want to go to the police because they fear that there's going to be secondary victimization. They'll be humiliated in the police station, in the courts, and all these places. And the evidence shows that although there's a minimum sentence of rape, I think it's 10 years, a number of rapists in Gauteng and one other province have been given suspended sentences by judges. And we need to find a way of impressing upon all sections of the criminal justice process that rape should be treated, with sensitivity towards the complainant, but if a person is found guilty, that person must be punished in accordance with the very serious character of the crime. And that has not happened up to now. But we need, women used to organize themselves not just in NGOs like Rape Crisis, but they used to have women's movements in the 1980s. And when the ANC was unbanned, a lot of these movements gave way to the ANC Women's League. Now, clearly now, we need to talk about other gender-based or women's movements, but also men's movement who connect with them. There is a sort of smallish attempt to develop men's movements which are gender sensitive. We need more of that.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about rape under spotlight.